All right, Sistas fans, let's talk about this week's episode, the return of Sistas. Man, what was it, like a 2 month hiatus? But here we are with season 7, episode 12, Next Level. And instead of this episode being a level up of season 7A, season 7B was definitely a couple of levels down. And unfortunately, I'm going to award it, if I'm not mistaken, the lowest score I've given an episode this season. If I remember correctly, and feel free to let me know, because honestly, I ought to start listing things on a chart in terms of what I score these episodes. But I don't believe I gave an episode less than like a 6 or a 7 during season 7A. But this episode, I'm giving it a 4 out of 10. Now, let me just be upfront about why I gave it a 4. Some people during the live stream and on Twitter feel that I gave it a score that's too high. There are those who say it should get a 4, a 3 or a 2, but a 4 is like too good for it. But yeah, this episode for me, I didn't put a lot of pressure on it, given the fact that this is only episode 12. It's the midpoint of the season. It's not a season opener to set the mood of what the season is bringing fans, nor was it the season finale or penultimate episode. It's just a run-of-the-mill, middle of the season episode. And a lot of people are like, well, Jeremy, a lot of the issues I feel like you might have with this episode are similar issues to ones during episodes 1 through 11. But why did you give so many episodes back then, like a 10 out of 10 or, as low as an 8, but you're giving this episode a 4? I feel like some of the decisions just didn't land for me because I feel like this episode had a number of characters, and not a rare occurrence because we've seen characters do things like this before, but there were way too many instances where characters didn't say what needed to be said. It's like, I'll tell you tomorrow, or I'll tell him tomorrow, or something to that effect, when in fact that it led to more problems than anything else. And true, a lot of Tyler shows, not just Tyler shows, but a lot of shows in general have this issue because if a character said what needed to be said when it needs to be said, a lot of these shows and whatnot will be wrapped up in less than 20 minutes rather than stretched out over, multiple 42-minute episodes. But yeah, this episode, it just had poor pacing, even though it quote unquote moved fast. But I feel like my biggest issue was the cutaways. Now, this was clearly evident in like episode 1 of the season, where we would cut back and forth from different scenes, where it's like people would say, they took like a 4-minute scene and we jumped away from it like 8 different times, like mid-sentence, and it's so annoying. I feel like a lot of people can agree with me when I say that the scene at Karen's apartment, it was a chore to sit through because we would cut away to Andy and Jordan, Sabrina and Sabrina and Rich, Danny and Tony, when it's like, no, let's just get through this scene and just be done with it. I feel like the cutaways were even worse than the commercials we had, the number of commercials we had during this episode. And sorry, we're almost 4 minutes into the video and I haven't even talked about the episode itself, but let's get into it because this will probably be quick. Before getting into the breakdown, welcome back to the channel. If you haven't been watching the content since Sisters went off, I do appreciate you, watching my videos, listening to my reviews. First of all, this is my first episode review in my new house. So again, as always, thanks to everybody who supports the channel, because you're watching and commenting and all that good stuff is how I make money and how I'm going to pay my bills. So to continue supporting the channel, if you have not done so already, it's absolutely free. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. We are closing in on 300,000 subscribers. The channel just hit 70 million views over the weekend, which I'm so happy about. If you remember last August, when I got demonetized, I had to delete a bunch of videos, and that brought me from like 78 million views down to 61 million views. But here we are at 70 again. So shooting for 100 million. So just watch my content and hit the bell notification and select all. That way you are up to date whenever I post content on the channel. And with Sisters on the air again and Zatima season 4 currently in production, trust and believe there will be a lot more uploads coming your way. So with that being said, let's jump into this snooze fest of an episode. Okay, so we start off with the sneak peek that we got earlier on Wednesday. I think around Wednesday afternoon, the Shade Room posted a 30-second clip, and then around 6:30 or 7:30 at that evening, we got the full 90-second clip. Miss Lisa comes over because Karen gave her a phone call, and essentially she breaks the news to her mom that the DNA test came back, and Zach is the father of one baby, and the other father is Aaron. Yes. And she's worried about how this is going to make her look. Miss Lisa took it a lot better than I thought. She basically just said, so what? You're the only one who cares about that kind of thing. Which I feel like that one line gives some insight into how Karen was growing up, where she felt like she had to present herself in a certain way because she cared too much about what other people thought. While Miss Lisa was like, hey, live and let live. Like, you know what? My life might not be perfect, but I don't give a crap what other people say or think about me because I'm just going to do me. And she pretty much makes a good point. It's like, you have two great fathers who want to be there for their children. So what's the point of being quote unquote embarrassed if you have two baby daddies? I mean, she actually has a good point. I mean, yes, it does not make Karen look great in terms of like you a garden tool for having two baby daddies at the same time. But how many women out there have multiple kids by the same deadbeat who doesn't take care of one of their kids, considering you have Zach and Aaron who are more than willing and have said on multiple occasions to be there for their children by Karen. So in a way, she's strangely blessed when you look at it from that perspective, even though she still looks like a garden tool. But in any case, Zach gives her a call and wants to know about the DNA test results, and Karen pulls the first offense of the episode by not telling him on the spot and saying you need to wait until tomorrow. What the flip? And yes, I know we as an audience get to experience that tomorrow in the same episode towards the end. But if I were Zach, I would be like, look, Karen, no offense. I know I'm the one that told you, let's get the DNA test, but I can't wait another night. Just tell me over the phone. And I feel like if Karen did say it, it would lead to a whole lot of questions. Like, look, I'm coming over. It's like, no, wait till tomorrow. So, yeah, and I get it. I get both sides of it. But if I were Zach, I would want to know right then, right there, no matter what. And also, this kind of confirms that, well, Zach wasn't notified by the hospital about the results. So, I guess the theory fans had about Karen filling out the paperwork. Because remember, Zach showed up to the appointment late because he stopped to give Karen some food, and she had already filled out a bunch of the information on his paperwork. Now, this could mean that she indeed put down her information rather than his, like in terms of like email, phone number, and whatnot. So this could be why Zach wasn't notified by the hospital about the results. So from there, we have Gary, who is fake playing nice to Andy and Fatima in regards to their allegations about him doing something to harm Penelope. But Andy, isn't able to get through to Gary. Gary's just faking. Fatima pulls the blade out on him, but Gary acts like he's not scared, which is kind of funny because he was afraid when she had that duffel bag at Andy's penthouse. Yet when there's a blade to his throat, he doesn't even flinch, which is kind of weird. So from there, as they are, leaving the office, Andy spots some blood on the wall, Penelope's blood. And it's kind of funny to me because when you think about it, the writers give Andy these super senses, or more likely common sense, when the plot demands it. Because remember at the beginning of season 4, after, I believe that's when Fatima beat the crap out of Hayden with the brass knuckles and then sent those 3 guys to beat him up in the car. And Andy spotted like a red spot on her dress, and it turned out to be Hayden's blood. And here you are now with her spotting Penelope's blood in the corner of a wall. So I guess Gary's cleaners weren't as thorough as they should have been. So basically on the way back, Fatima tells Andy to call Jordan first before the cops, because it's like, okay, well, you have no evidence right now. So basically the best thing you can do is to call Jordan and then, work from there. But unfortunately, she isn't able to get through to Jordan, and she's like, I'll just do it, tomorrow, because he did mentioned, but Andy forgot that he was out of town for like a conference or something, something political like that. But in any case, going back to Karen, I forgot to mention this earlier. When Miss Lisa asked Karen, well, okay, you're going to wait until tomorrow to tell Zach, but what about Aaron? When are you going to call him? Why don't you do it now? I don't want to call him right now. And it's just like, I guess I get it, because Karen is still sitting with this humongous revelation. I mean, in the matter of what, like a couple of days, she's realized that instead of one baby, I'm having two. And instead of Zach being the father like I suspected, I have two baby daddies. So maybe she wants to have a moment where she can just sit with this for herself and then tell Zach and Aaron about it. So I guess I will give Karen a little bit of leniency here when it comes to that. So over at the Hayden household, you have him and Tamara getting ready for dinner because Hayden decided to surprise her with all the craziness going on with his job and whatnot. They haven't had a lot of time to be romantic. Before he even gets into the dining room, you have Tamara and Gary texting back and forth about how he wants her right now, but she's like, oh no, I can't. But then in the midst of Hayden, talking to Tamara, who looked fine as I don't know what, by the way, Miss Marie wants to see him and Andy right now. So unfortunately, he has to dip, and Tamara tells Gary, hey, I'm on my way. So then she shows up in this amazing dress and that strut she did into the office before Gary bent her over. I was willing to give this episode a 15 out of 10 just for that scene alone, but oh well. So basically from there, we go over to the next day. And Michael's, I love this scene. This is one of my favorite scenes of the episode. Michael's having breakfast. You got Fatima, just being there with him. And then Zach shows up. And essentially, he brings up the fact that, tonight I got to go over to Karen's to the meeting and Fatima wants to go too. And yeah, that's, Zach is like, no, it's just me. No, I'm going too. And I can see both sides of this. I just feel like, you would think, if nothing else, Karen would want Fatima to be there, because even though she wasn't 100% about Zach being the baby daddy of both kids, knowing that there is confirmation that he is the baby daddy of at least one would make Fatima's, jaw drop. But essentially, we have Zach telling Fatima later on the phone, like, hey, if you come by, just please leave the ratchetness at the door. And then Fatima makes it clear, look, I'm showing up, but I won't start with Karen so long as she doesn't start with me. Well, hey, you're going to leave your purse, and Fatima hangs up. So we go over to Danny calling Sabrina about the fact that you need to apologize to Karen. And I love how Danny is standing 10 toes deep. No, I'm not. It's just the fact that you say I was saying some hurtful things while completely ignoring the fact that Karen was doing the same. And that's one of the major issues with the sister circle, where it's like they have to bow down and grovel to Karen for her forgiveness and understanding, despite the fact that usually they only match her, nastiness, because typically Karen's the one that, goes in on someone, but then the moment one of the other girls even attempts to clap back, they're silenced or forced to apologize, which I think is complete nonsense. Now, granted, I don't think that Danny deserved the apology she got at the beginning of, I believe, season 6, because at the end of season 5, I still stand on the unpopular opinion that the girls did nothing wrong when they had the intervention after, Sabrina caught Danny having slept with Q. They told her about, hey, we care about you. You can have your hot girl summer, but just make some better choices. And no, the other women haven't had the best track record with their own choices, but unlike Danny, they hadn't been beaten up or almost killed to the extent she was by Jonah. And they hadn't been, messing around with somebody, a lowlife like Q. So basically, they were just looking out for their girl because they had every right to, given the fact that she was acting reckless. But then they went to the bar at the beginning of season 6 just to apologize, which I felt was not necessary. So, hey, apologies all around, even to people who don't deserve them. But in any case, yeah, I'm Team Danny. Bump Karen. She did say after work she might go over there, which of course is why she went over there in the midst of the baby daddy drama. So from there, we got Tony, who begs her to watch the kids after work because he has an emergency meeting and his auntie is out of town with some bingo thing, so she wouldn't be available to watch the kids. So I thought that was pretty funny. From there, we have Fatima and Andy, and it's just a situation about how she's worried about Penelope and how things, I haven't heard from her all night. But due to the fact that she was, focused on other things, she somehow missed the call from both Marie and Hayden about their impromptu meeting. So it's kind of funny to me that Marie has these two working around the clock. Now, I would have pulled a big red, like, look, I know you're a big fish to our law firm, but my office hours are from 9 to 5. So I don't know why you want this emergency meeting, because anybody I can contact to help out, they wouldn't be available at this hour in the middle of the night. So you need to cool it. So basically from there, Marie gives Andy a call just to make sure her priorities are straight. Andy makes sure that they are, but Hayden comes in and is like, well, now do you have time to talk about it? So yeah, there's that. Now from there, we have Jordan, who calls Andy about Penelope still missing, and she's worried about it. I mean, he's worried about it, but Andy says that she will see him shortly. Over at the bank, Sabrina's trying to inject herself with something. I think it has something to do with getting her hormones or body ready for the, baby procedure and whatnot. And Maurice eventually comes in to help her with it. But the thing is, he's going at it with a new character named Carrie, one of the employees at the bank, because she's accusing him of drinking her diet soda. And they're making a huge fuss about it in the bank during work hours while there are customers present. And it turns out he did drink the beverage, which was pretty messed up. And I did a separate video prior to recording this one, going into great detail about how I think that Sabrina made a big mistake by letting Maurice back on the job. Now, I think what should have happened is Sabrina should have had a serious discussion with Maurice about, hey, if I bring you on, it has to be different, because I had to work my butt off for the past several months to prove to these people that I'm still an essential part to this bank, and I just now got my job back. Sabrina just handed the job back to Maurice. Well, I would love to have you back, but it's like, could we not have a serious conversation about why he got fired in the first place? Okay, sure. India said that even if Maurice was indirectly or not directly responsible for the robbery, we still had a number of customer complaints about his unprofessional behavior. And based off his demeanor and behavior in the scene with Carrie, nothing has changed. So I really do wish that there would have been more of a trial or rite of passage for Maurice to get his job back, even if it was him having a meeting with India himself to express that, hey, I just want to let you know again, I wasn't involved with Q's robbery attempt, but at the same time, the other reasons why you don't want me back, I want to prove you wrong to show that I can be professional, I can be better, and I can be a model employee. But unfortunately, that doesn't seem to be the case whatsoever. Now, over at the salon, we get a brief scene of Trey, who's setting up security cameras, and Pam is talking with him. And I really did like the scene. Trey is talking about, how he believes in karma, doing good things will come back around, and vice versa with bad things. But at the same time, he does, show interest in asking Pam about roots to riches and how things are going well with her. But based off what we know in season 8 information with Karen seemingly being sued, that may have something to do with the product. So hopefully it doesn't blow up in her face. But Karen does thank him for the cameras. And, it just makes you wonder how far these two will go. It's kind of crazy how Karen is attracting all these men, when Pam, honestly, I feel in some ways deserves, a good man herself. But that's just my opinion. So let's see what else we got here. We're wrapping up, folks. There's not too much left to talk about. We have Karen. Okay. All right, I'm trying to figure out how to talk about this. I'm going to talk about, because I'm looking at my notes, and of all the cutaways, my notes are kind of like Karen's apartment, Jordan's place, Danny's place. Let me talk about all the scenes at once. So Tony drops the kids off at Danny's place. And then from there, hijinks ensue with his son eating up a lot of food, ignoring Danny by being on his phone or video game, and then Brianna finding the fuzzy handcuffs, and then wants to know, wait, what are these for? They're for a game that me and your daddy played. What's the game? You're going to have to ask your dad. And then in the midst of the interrogation about the handcuffs, that's when Tony knocks on the door. And, we see Brianna put the handcuffs in her pocket, which could be a plot point later on during the scene where a future episode when Tony's ex-wife meets Danny for the first time. I wonder if it's like Brianna asked her mom about, hey, these were at Miss Danny's place. And she said they're for a game she plays with Daddy. What kind of game do adults play with these kind of handcuffs? So that would be an interesting first impression there. Now, on top of that, we got Andy telling Jordan about this fact that I need you to calm down and don't freak out. But Penelope and I have been trying to bring Gary down for the past few months behind your back because he's been involved with a lot of shady things. And Jordan rightfully gets upset. It's like, wait, so my sister's missing. Based on what you're telling me, you think Gary has something to do with it. And you and Penelope have been trying to bring him down behind the scenes together, despite the fact he has this huge, criminal record. Don't you think that was dangerous? And Jordan is, again, rightfully pissed off. And Andy's just, trying her best to force a tear to come down her face. Well, I'm sorry. And KJ knows I tease her about this, but she can make the funniest ugly cry faces I've ever seen. This reminds me of last season at the salon after the fire when she's breaking down about Karen supposedly being burnt up. And it's just the fact that she will make the cry face, not a tear streams down her cheek, but then the next nanosecond she could switch back to normal. And then she goes from, I'm so sorry, Jordan, I'm going to the police station. I'm coming with you. It's like, what? No. What's going on here? And it's like, you could have, this leads into the final scenes where Gary's already at the police station talking to a detective about Penelope's disappearance. And he's pointing the blame at Andy for being a crazy ex conspiring against him with Penelope, trying to turn her against me. And she probably had something to do with the disappearance. If Andy had told Jordan the night before over the phone, even though he was out of town, they could have, beaten Gary to the punch to make, things look better for them as compared to how Gary is painting Andy and Jordan to be to the police. So from there, you have Jordan who's getting really ticked off, which could lead to the one synopsis coming up about how Andy's going to see a side of Jordan she's never seen before. So that's pretty much it for that story beat. Oh yeah, also we got Sabrina and Rich. They were watching a show called Just Boning or something like that. Then they take it to the bedroom. And interestingly enough, Sabrina pulls out some condoms, but Rich is quick to say, baby, hey, those too small for me. I need to get my Wakandan size condoms. And then, they're stretching before they reenact some of the things they saw on TV. Now, one could just write this off as a playful comedic scene, but one has to wonder, did Sabrina purposefully have condoms too small for Rich in the attempt to get pregnant by him? Because these two have been dating for 3+ months at this point. I would assume she would know her man's girth and size. So having condoms of a specific, size would be appropriate. So for her to whip out those things that were a bit too small makes me wonder if this was planned. Not to mention, she probably poked some holes in them condoms without Rich knowing. So I wouldn't put it past Sabrina to try to entrap this man. That's all I'm saying. Oh yeah, we have a side quest with Maurice and Grayson. Grayson comes over. That's pretty much it. Talking about being exclusive. I honestly have no interest in these two. But in any case, this is the whole thing about him not having that fixation page. If nothing else, Grayson... Okay, the one thing I will say, Grayson seems possessive, if you ask me. That's just the one thing I will say about that plot point. So, okay. We got Zach and Fatima showing up at Karen's. Obviously, Karen is not too happy about Fatima being there, but Zach is quick to, kill that noise, saying, look, she deserves to know. Okay, she's not here to make trouble. We don't want any trouble. We just want the results. So they show up. And instead of getting the results right away, it's like, oh, we have a special guest. Like, is this an episode of Maury or what? And boom, Danny shows up. So basically, she's there to apologize, not in the middle of this baby daddy drama because she didn't know about it. So then we have Aaron showing up, and then Zach is quick. Oh, this clown. And I'm like, bro, it's been 3 months and some change, and yet you still have this attitude towards Aaron. But then again, people say the same thing about Karen's attitude towards Fatima, so I guess it's fair. But in any case, it's revealed that she's pregnant by 2 different men, and that's pretty much it. And you have Zach, who's not too happy about it, but it's like, you know what? Hey, at least I am happy. I am having 1 baby. So he even rubs Karen's stomach and then, leaves. And it's like, wow. Fatima's just speechless. And I'm just thinking to myself, you're happy and whatnot in front of Fatima, and they just leave. Aaron wants to talk to Karen, but Karen's like, look, Aaron, just not right now. I'll talk to you tomorrow. And then, of course, Danny is the only non-related, or when I say related, I mean involved in this, is the only unrelated party to this news, and Karen wants to keep it on the DL. But then again, this is Danny, so she should have known better. She was going to blab about it at some point, which we know she will in the promo for next week. But here's my biggest takeaway from this scene. If you remove the scene from season 7A where Aaron calls Pam over the phone for like 30 seconds, this would have technically been Aaron's first scene in this season. You would think Aaron's return will be treated with a little bit more gravitas. Remember, and this is to my knowledge here, he hasn't seen or communicated with Karen in over 3 months. The last time they interacted was at her apartment, where she made it clear with some paperwork that there was like a 99.9999% chance he wasn't the daddy. Basically dismissing him, saying, you're not the father. I don't want you. I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be with you. Step off. And then the moment he comes back, well, she's the one that tells him to come over, reveals that you're the other baby daddy, yet he doesn't question anything. Now, you could argue, well, Jeremy, he did say he wanted to talk with Karen, but I don't really know if he's going to ask the questions that need to be asked. Okay, Karen, this is a lot to wrap my head around. Obviously he will be excited to have any sort of connection to Karen, but I wish it would just be a conversation where it's like, okay, let me get this straight. 3 months ago, you told me about a shadow of a doubt with the paperwork, I'm not the father. Now, here you are months later contacting me saying I am the father. And not only that, you're having twins. Now, it would be better for Karen to say, well, at the time, I didn't know I was pregnant with twins. I didn't know until the recent checkup when Zach asked for a DNA test. And that's why, because one fetus was hiding behind the other. I don't know. But I hope next week when Aaron does talk to Karen, we get some sort of explanation, because I would just hate for him to randomly show up just because the plot demands it, as opposed to him having some very solid questions like, does he have anybody else in his life right now? Was he just sitting around pining for Karen this entire time? How is this going to change his dynamic with Zach? I don't know. But then another thing is the fact that Danny lets it slip up about how, or actually, no, she doesn't let it slip up. She purposely brings up the fact with everybody in attendance that, oh, you got a DNA test. I guess you follow my advice. Making Karen realize that it wasn't Fatima who made the idea or planted the seeds and Zach said about the DNA test. It was Danny. And you would think that in that one moment, Karen would have said, you know what? Look, I've said a lot of things about you, Fatima, and I feel a certain way about you. But in this one instance, I'm going to apologize because I honestly thought you were the one that pushed Zach to get a test, but it was actually Danny. However, we didn't get that. So with that being said, that's pretty much all I have to say about the episode. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like and subscribe, and I'll catch you all in the next video.